We all assume that what we think and then say is being heard as we meant it. But is it true? How often have you misunderstood what another has said to you? Or how often have you been confused when someone hasn't responded in the way that you thought that they were going to respond? We always think that we're very clear. I know that when I offer my first Tai Chi class to people, I say, please remember just 2 things from class today and let the rest go. They nod, and then they proceed to want to absorb every piece of information I'm going to say, and it overwhelms them. How is it that people hear what they want to hear, do what they want to do, regardless of the expertise or the support that others can provide? My guest today is Vera Thomas. Vera has her own podcast show where she explores effective communication and supporting for others and highlighting that through the guests that she's able to bring on. Vera has another incredible skill. I shouldn't say just one skill. It's more than that. She's trained in mediation and leadership, and she excels at supporting parents and children as they navigate school, learning, and of course, parenting. Vera is a life coach, international speaker, a trainer, a mediator, a poet. I love that list. 22 times best-selling author. That's amazing. Producer of a 2-time weekly podcast radio show, The Vera Thomas Show. Her career spans over 40 years, working with individuals, companies, nonprofit organizations, schools, and churches, engaging youth and adults. Vera is available for companies who want to transform their teams or families who want to transform their lives. So get ready to learn more about this powerhouse guest and the gifts she has in supporting others. You're listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. This podcast is supported by Dance Debut Inc. and the Cape Breton Tea Company. Please welcome Vera Thomas.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh, it's lovely to be able to catch up again. I enjoyed being on your podcast, and I'm excited now to shine the light on you. And yes, there's the podcast, but I'm really excited to shine the light on the skills that you have and what you do offer for others in your work.
Well, thank you.
So to start off, let's get the affirmation going today. So for those people who might be listening for the first time, I always pull a card from my affirmations for the body and biofield deck. And this is to get us started in a goal. And you may have a goal for why you're listening today, but we want to shed a light on helping you to be in balance and flow by the end of this podcast. So we're raising the energy and vitality of what's going on for you. So I'm holding up, for those on the podcast, I'm going to hold up the front cover of the card deck. So it's a black card, but it has a ribbon of color in the center, which represents mother and child. And I think this is always so important to the conversations that we're having, because it's about how we nurture ourselves. How do we be the parent? How do we be the child? And then how do we play and get ourselves moving forward? So the card I pulled today, here's the artwork for it. So this is very specific in this artwork. Those listening, it looks like ribbons of color, and it's like white or yellow light coming through brown hues with a tiny little bit of purple on the one side. And this is part of the fascia spine flow. So how the energy comes off of the spine, off the vertebra, and it travels through the fascia, which is all fluid, and travels out to the organ systems and out to the muscles and tissue. And I pulled the one for the root chakra, the note of C. We are one. Abundance flows through the magnitude of community, grounded in worldliness, and surrounded by loving support. I believe that is everything that's going to come around in this conversation today. And for those people listening, that root chakra, the note of C, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be balance and flow to support you as abundance flows through the magnitude of community, your ability to be grounded and surrounded and be supported by loving enrichment.
That is beautiful. Can I ask you a question? Now, did you design those cards yourself?
Yes. So the artwork comes from Tanya Levy, a colleague of mine, And then in the affirmations and what's embedded within the artwork, that's the work that the two of us put together.
They are beautiful. I mean, absolutely beautiful.
Well,
And
and then,
I know you're interviewing me, but I had to ask that question.
that's okay. The other piece that's really interesting is for those people that can see the image, it is a photograph of nature, but then she runs it through special filters and it creates these amazing images. But the particular ones for the fascia spine flow show kind of like what it looks like for the fascia to be flowing out to the tissue. And I'm just fascinated by how we can make that happen in a visual form.
That's awesome. Can I ask another question?
You can, yeah.
Do you use AI at all with what you're producing?
No, this is all ours. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Okay. So thank you for asking that question. It's nice to shed a little bit of light on the card deck. So let's go to the second part of transformation today, and that is what we're drinking. So I always like to highlight what people choose to drink. You take that moment to sit back, relax, listen to the podcast. We want you to be engaged and energizing. And so, Vera, what have you packed today?
I'm drinking coffee. That's my thing. I love tea in the evenings, late afternoons, but in the mornings, coffee is my drink.
And you just held up the mug. What mug did you put it in today?
It has my name on it. It awesome. Says it's a Vera thing. And so that's what it is. It's a Vera thing.
I love that. I love that because lots of times we try to find the right phrases and we pick up mugs and cups and things, but nobody ever, acknowledges the gifts or the skills or the brilliance that comes from the personalities that we are, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And on the other side, it's on one side it says it's a Vera thing. On the other side, it says, relax. Vera is here.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, so for those people listening, think about what mug you might have chose today and then how you might be able to bring in your gifts and expertise. I love that. Okay, so I have in here, you and I were chatting just before the show. So I had put it in a clear glass. So for those people listening, I have a golden, orange, yellow blend. This is the Mission for Change Community Tea. And this one is like drinking sunshine. That's the way I describe it because that color is so beautiful. So I've started actually moving from my dark mugs where I can't see the color to finding ones where they're white or clear, and so that I can actually enjoy the color that gets enhanced by them.
I love that color. It's an amber type color. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And then you're right with the amber. People don't think about what color they're putting inside and then how that color is going to light them up, which is really valuable too. So the tea, I just wanted to share a little bit on a couple. It's got about 15 different herbs in it, but I wanted to highlight a couple today. So in a previous podcast, I highlighted strawberry and peppermint and how they work together. But I wanted to talk about lemon balm and chamomile for this one. So the lemon balm supports graciousness with the peppermint and the idea that life is beautiful wherever you look. Isn't that great?
That's beautiful.
That's lemon balm. And then we combine it with chamomile, which supports releasing fear and helping others in need. Isn't that great? So you're talking about graciousness, let go of your fear, and put yourself out there to help someone else. And the whole point of this tea has been an outreach for a family in Malawi that my sister has been supporting and trying to capture what they need, how she could best help, and the kinds of resources she can help them with. Sometimes it's just education. But the Moyo family has 16 family members, most of which are children, and they're trying to raise the food, and they don't have any shelter because that went in a typhoon 2 years ago. So trying to rebuild what they can where they are. And so this tea, anybody who purchases tea, the money goes right back to the Moyo family.
That is beautiful. Now, so where are they living right now?
They live on their land, and they have like a little tiny tent. Now there's 16 of them. And yeah, so they lost everything in that, it was horrendous floods that went through there. And then they have drought, and then they have rains, and yeah. So to rebuild, they need to rebuild with cement bricks this time instead of mud bricks. But that requires money, ingenuity, and they only need 2 tiny little rooms. That's all they're looking for. Yeah, which is amazing.
16 people?
For 16 people. When you think about what we would want with 16 people, it'd be a mansion, because we want to have enough space for us not to be in each other's face, right? But they're just looking for shelter. Yeah.
Wow. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment and it's not big enough.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
So for more people, for people listening who want to know more about the Moyo family, we always dedicate the last podcast episode of the month to that family, so you can easily pick it up. And that's called Compassionate Living. So Vera, thank you for joining me on this podcast, and we're going to get to you next. So cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers.
Oh, I talked about this tea all weekend, but I just really love sipping. Okay.
I can't wait to taste it. With the ingredients that you mentioned, the chamomile, the peppermint, just that combination. And you said there are 16 how many ingredients?
Yeah. There's about 15, 16 ingredients altogether.
Wow. That's amazing. I can't wait to get some of your teas.
All right. So Vera, let's start with, I know you've devoted your life to helping others and helping others succeed and be effective in what they're doing. Do you want to share with the listeners how you got into this type of work and where it's led you?
Okay. Well, I grew up with no confidence, no self-esteem. I was bullied and ridiculed and made fun of, told things like, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're fat, you're ugly, you're nothing, you'll never be anything. And so not having any confidence, I was really shy, because when you're told those kinds of things and, I experienced mental, emotional, and physical abuse, that shyness resulted because I was afraid to say anything for fear of what the result would be. And I remember reading a book when I was about a teenager. I read a book called The Magic of Believing, and that book changed my life. In that book, there were tips and tools and things that I could do to help build my confidence. One of which was affirmations. And I would fall asleep at night saying, I'm confident, I'm confident, I'm confident. I would literally fall asleep at night saying that. There was also a quote in that book by Eleanor Roosevelt, which says, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. When I recognized that, then I also recognized that it didn't matter what other people said about me. It didn't matter how other people felt about me. All that mattered is how I felt about myself. And so because I don't want any child to ever feel like I felt, I began to develop programs for kids. And I have 4 programs that's been in the school systems. One is an anti-bullying program, a self-esteem program. And because I am a writer and a poet, I've developed a writing program for kids to be able to express either through short stories, songs, raps, or poems. And I also have an all-school assembly called I Believe in Me. Now, during the course of these programs that I was doing in the schools, I was also doing my master's in organizational management. So I was going into companies and doing team building, communications, conflict resolution, and all of those kinds of things as well. What I realized, both in the workplace and with working with kids, parents have a lot of their own unresolved issues and their own baggage that they're bringing into parenting that's impacting on their children. And so I developed a program for parents called Instilling Greatness in Myself and My Children. And all of this stems from my own personal experience, having also been a battered wife, raising my son as a single mom from the time he was 6 months old, recognizing, and do you know, Michelle, with gaining all that confidence, all that self-esteem, and all of that, when I got married and wound up being in an abusive, mentally, physically, emotionally abusive relationship, all that confidence, all that self-esteem, all that stuff that I had worked so hard to acquire, I lost it all. Lost it all. Because how can you maintain positivity when you got people, you're in a relationship where you're being criticized, physically attacked, and those kinds of things. And so I left my husband when he attacked me in front of my son when my son was 3 months old. I knew then I was not going to raise a child in that kind of environment. But the kicker is I not only had to rebuild myself and recreate the version of the person I wanted to be, I had a child. So it was necessary for me to also instill greatness, which is the name of my programs, instill greatness into my son as well. And so the tools and the things that I've used to help build his confidence and mine are the things that I use in my programs. And I can honestly say my son is one of the most positive people you will ever meet. And there are times when I'm feeling down when he'll say, Mom, and remind me, And so that's why I do what I do, and the work experiences that I've had on jobs is one of the reasons that I also have worked in companies. But right now, my purpose and my passion is to work with parents and their children, individually and collectively.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. And isn't it something that no matter how much work you might have done on yourself, and actually just to think how incredible that is that you even knew to do that, because a lot of kids just carry on with lack of confidence and fear and whatever, but that you actually engaged in an activity that was trying to build you up. And still, because for those people, that go, oh, but life just keeps hitting me and it keeps hitting me again. But, you go, yeah, even when you did all that work, still, sometimes we make those decisions that,
yes,
I guess, give us the lessons we need to learn from, I guess.
Yes.
Painful as they are. But,
yes.
But then too, what that provided you with, such a different realization of how valuable those skills are.
Yes. And the other thing that it taught me that even though, life is a journey. And even though I built up my confidence and self-esteem, life happened that caused me to lose it again. But I also realized, well, if I could acquire it once, then I can acquire it again. And so no matter what we go through, and I am also convinced that we go through stuff, I could not do what I do if I had not gone through the things that I've gone through. And also remember, because of that lack of confidence and self-esteem, I used to cry out and pray. It's like, what is my purpose? Why was I born? Because of all the negativity that I was experiencing. And it's like, why am I here? And so now, as life has gone on, I recognize I'm here for a purpose. I have a purpose. My purpose is to uplift, encourage, motivate, inspire, and encourage and educate other people. I could not do those things if I had not gone through the things that I've gone through.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that trial and tribulation piece that we experience as we go through to find those right skills, how much you can advance, how much you get pushed back, how much you advance again, how much you get pushed back. Then you understand the stages and the unrolling that happens for other people as they find their way and find their footing, and notice which are the tools that are going to work for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. My goodness. I'm curious, what does your son do?
My son, he's in sales. And he's also a musician, and he produces other people. In fact, my grandchildren, two of my grandchildren and my son are the producers of my theme song for my show. My grandchildren are actually singing it. So he's into music. He's been into music. And it's interesting because when I was pregnant with him, I would play Baroque and classical music on my stomach.
Yep.
And which caused him to advance rather early. I mean, he was walking at 7 months, and he was talking before he was 2 years old, and he hasn't stopped. Sales, he's into sales. He's very gregarious. In sales positions that he's had, he's always been at the top in their department. And so he loves it, and that's what he does. And then the music thing is just innately a part of him. His dad was also a musician, and so that's just something that's innately in him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I was curious when you're focused on how to build up those skills, what that meant for your son. So as parents are listening to this conversation, or people who maybe are in a work environment where they have a lot of employees that they oversee or they're supporting in their education and training, to realize the skills that we're working on and how we transfer them over to other people and empower them by taking power ourselves, how we can empower others.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the other thing where parents are concerned, be aware, be very cognizant of the talents and the gifts that your children are displaying at an early age. Oftentimes, those very things are the things that will be their lifelong goals, careers, passions. My son, when he was 4 years old, he wanted drums. I got him drums, and then he wanted a keyboard. I'm so glad he wanted a keyboard. But like, just whatever, when children express certain things. I remember being with a family, and this little boy was talking about how he wants to be a chef and he loves to cook. And I asked his mother, well, is he cooking in the kitchen with you? And she said, no. I said, well, you need to have him do that, because if he's saying that he wants to be a chef, then what better training than to be with his mom in the kitchen, helping her cook. My son that's the other thing. He's a great cook. He started cooking when he was 9 years old with me. He's an excellent cook, and he loves to cook.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was laughing thinking about my own son, because I did put him on the keyboard first. and when he was 4, the piano teacher, she was a business colleague, and she said, please do not bring him back. She said he needs a drum. He needs to do something other than piano. And he hated reading the music. But what was interesting, we didn't get a drum kit. What he got was tap shoes. Because I was a dance teacher. So he got tap shoes. And so, but the thing about him is he's rhythmically inclined. So he's taken that desire for the beat of the music, and he understands time signatures and phrasing and nuances of music that I just never had. But he had that opportunity to be able to weave himself through those lessons in the way that he wanted to. He was not going to read the music, but he certainly could find it and feel it. So it's interesting. So as we're, mentioning to parents, pay attention to those pieces, because lots of parents will have an idea where they want to send their kids.
Yes.
But that's not always where they want to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is, and when you think about it, I was a non-traditional college student. So all of the other students were young. And I remember asking them, what made you decide on your discipline? I cannot tell you how many times I would hear things like, well, everybody in my family has always done this, or this is what my parents thought I should do, or I don't know. When you consider 85% of people who graduate from college, they never work in the field that they graduated from. And it's because in most cases, they're making decisions based on what other people are telling them, rather than looking at their own values, interests, skills, and personality types to determine the best course for them. And that's why I think it's so important. Our kids are not here to fulfill what it is that we want to be. Mm-hmm. Our kids are here to go their own path. And it is our job to help nurture that, build that, and enforce that by being observant in looking at their areas of strengths, their areas of what do they gravitate towards? And then it's our job to help move them in those areas. How many times have you heard little kids say what they want to be, and then they grow up to be that thing because they had it? We were designed with purpose. You know, we were born with purpose. And oftentimes that purpose is identified very early on. And it's up to our parents to help nurture that, as I said before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was just in a conversation on the weekend of someone whose parents put them into a private school, academic. They had the path set out, and she just wanted to do arts. And she ended up at the end of grade 10 having the principal pull the parents in and say, this child does not belong here. She needs to go somewhere else. And they put her into art school, and then she just
blossomed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know, our school, in my opinion, our schools are failing, and they're failing because they're not designed to focus on the innate abilities of our kids. Everything is so linear versus not being linear. Mm-hmm. And as a result, kids are failing, schools are failing, and teachers are frustrated. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we really need to look at God-given talents and abilities and move in those directions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking about a couple transformation stories you might have. So in the workshops that you do for parents, do you want to share some of the things that you've seen?
Yes. I've worked with parents that they were pretty much at their wits' end because they couldn't understand why their children were behaving in such ways. And an example, well, before I even share that, I remember when my son was 2 years old, and I just knew this little boy had a problem. I just knew something was wrong with him. And I took him to a counselor. And at the time, I was really stressed. I was going through a lot of stuff. And so the counselor looked at me and she says, tell me, what's going on with you? Tell me more about what's going on with you. And I just went, oh, this, that, and all the other. And then she said, it's not your son, it's you. He's just picking up on all the stress that you are feeling, and that is why his behavior is as it is. Oftentimes, parents are going through so much stuff themselves, and then they wonder why their children are behaving the way that they are. So transformation for me is when a parent can look at themselves and look at those misconceived behaviors that they are imposing on themselves and their children, and the impact that it's having, and to let's change that, you know. But awareness precedes change. It is not my job to point fingers and say, you this, you that. My job is to help them assess for themselves what needs to be changed. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm able to give them the tools to help them identify those areas that could be improved. And then they see that as a result of that improvement, their children are improved as well. And so, I mean, that's just so rewarding for me to be able to see that kind of transformation, and then to see transformation in children. I remember being in one of my trainings where there was a 3-pronged training. The first session was with all 3rd graders, all 4th graders, and all 5th graders during the course of the school day. The second session, fathers came to the school and did a special project with each of their children. The third session, mothers came to the school and did a session with the kids. During the course of the time when mothers were there working with the children, there was a little boy. His mother was not in his life. His father was incarcerated, and his brother was his guardian. And while working with them, under his breath, he said, "I can't stand to look at myself in the mirror." I said, "What did you say?" He said, louder, "I can't stand to look at myself in the mirror." That broke my heart. And the way these mothers embraced him and showed him so much love and encouraged him and told him what a handsome young boy. This was a 10-year-old. And then the beautiful thing was how his classmates rallied around him to show him so much love. That was a tearjerker for me. I mean, first of all, to hear a child say that they can't stand and look at themselves in the mirror, that's why I do the work I do, because I don't want children to feel that way, and it had to have come from people telling him that he's ugly or the kinds of things that I heard as a child. Mm-hmm. And so seeing transformation, and one of the things, like when I work with kids, the first day I have them come up to because I'm teaching confidence, right? So I'm trying to help them build confidence right off the bat. So they come up to the front of the class, they share what they like about themselves, and then they share an area that they feel they need to work on. I cannot tell you how many kids say, "I need to work on my anger issues."
Oh, interesting.
Yes, but we got angry parents. We've got an angry society, so kids are picking up on all that anger and angst that's out there. And so being able to look at, well, why am I angry? What's causing me to feel that kind of anger and angst within myself? What's going on in my environment that's making me feel that way? Why are my parents appearing to be so angry? And so these are issues that need to be addressed. And those are things that I try to help parents identify the causes for their behaviors, their emotions. And in most cases, parents have what the negativity that they have, and not there are some excellent parents out there. I'm not saying that every parent out here is a bad parent. I'm not even saying that parents are bad. It's not about being bad. It's about being aware, and it's about having knowledge, and it's about having an understanding of who I am and what impact am I having on my child. In most cases, those attitudes and behaviors that parents are bringing into parenting is a result of how they were raised themselves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I have a thought, and then it'll be a question for you.
Okay.
I'm thinking about parents who read self-help books for parenting versus taking an in-person workshop. you want to talk a little bit about what is the difference between reading about it and participating?
I think it's important to do, well, having written, being a part of 3 parenting books, I want to encourage people to read the books.
Yeah.
But also, not only reading books, but engaging and being involved in parenting workshops and training programs and being around other parents and recognizing I'm not alone. It's not, people are frustrated and going through a lot of things. And when we recognize you're not alone, you're not by yourself. And so that having that camaraderie with other parents, I think is very, very important. So I am a proponent of reading the books, but also engaging with other parents and understanding, one, I'm not alone. Two, children are not bad, and when we hear, I can't stand to hear a parent say, he's so bad. I remember being in a store one day and I saw the cutest little girl. And I said to the mother, she is so cute. The first thing that came out of the mother's mouth was, yeah, but she's so bad.
Yeah.
We get what we say. What we say is what we get. And if we keep telling children you're bad, you're stupid, you're dumb, kids are going to believe that and they're going to act on that. That's why words matter. Words matter. What we say is so important.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about the little boy and what he said about the mirror. And I'm thinking about, you can read about ways to engage things, change things, and you can try them. But to get to the roots of the problem or the root of the thought processes, you don't actually know what that's going to be. And we all don't know our greatest cloak, right? what we hide from everyone else, very often we don't know what that is. And other people sometimes recognize it and try to support us in helping us to see. But it isn't until you have this chance to sit in a place that's safe and allows you to be vulnerable that the true pieces can come forward.
Absolutely.
And that little boy could have been in a zillion workshops, but it was there that he was able to identify.
Yes.
Something about that mirror, something about looking at himself to be able to say that and then get that help and affirmation that
Yes. And by the end of that session, he was beaming.
Wow.
He was beaming. You could see the transformation in his face because of the affirmations that he got from the parents and the other kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about even in the classes and the sessions that I do, that's what you're looking for. And you're looking for that spark and you're looking for that lift. And the same at the end of the podcast, I set it up so that people are balanced and in flow. And I'm hoping that when they turn the podcast off, that they're completely engaged and going, yeah, I'm ready to dive into whatever it is I want to do next.
Yes.
And that it's that piece. And I think sometimes if we try to academically, by reading the book, in our heads we go, I get it. But we don't always really get it. We have some more knowledge about it. And I'm not trying to push the books out of the way. I just know that some people will try to stay within the books.
Right.
Because they just don't want to dive into the next part, which is to engage with other people. Find a sense of community. And like you said, find out you're not the only one.
Yes. And one of the other things that's so important, there's an exercise called Johari's window. And in one of the windows, that's the window where I know about me and you know about me. Then there's that window where I know about me, but you don't know about me. And then there's that window where you know about me that I don't know about me. And then there's that window of potential. Oftentimes, and one of the things that I often say, if you hear the same thing about yourself over and over and over again from different sources, we need to look at that. And I remember, and again, awareness precedes change. I remember after I left my ex-husband, needless to say, I was bitter. Mm-hmm. And I remember a friend of mine coming to my house one day. And when she walked in the door, I was having my pity party, sitting on my pity pot and just going off, blaming everything on everybody and saying, if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for him, my life wouldn't be this way. And she looked at me and she said, no, Vera, if it wasn't for you and the choices that you've made, your life wouldn't be this way. Needless to say, I went into, now the blame game is one of those misconceived behaviors. And so I went into from the blame game to being defensive, which is another one of those misconceived behaviors. And I got very kind of upset. How dare you tell me that my issues and my problems are because of me? How dare you tell me that? Well, awareness precedes change. When we know better, we do better. And I had to think about it. And she was right. Had I not married that guy, I would not have experienced what I experienced. But on the other hand, if I had not married him, I wouldn't have my son. Okay. So I have to look at it from that perspective as well. And I did learn from the experience. And I did learn what I don't want in my future. But if I had not learned to accept responsibility for my actions and my behaviors, how was I going to teach my son to do the same? Mm-hmm. And so I'm saying that to say to parents, sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow when we recognize that there are things within us that's impacting not only our lives, but the lives of those around us. It's a hard pill to swallow. And the only way that we're going to get to that is by being open and receptive, to be involved and engaged with others, and also to not be afraid to ask people, what are your perceptions of me? And we can take things with a grain of salt, but I think it's important to kind of get a feel for, how do other people see you? How do other people see me? And how they see me, is that how I see me? And how they see me, is that good or bad, right or wrong? Do I accept or reject? And I have the right to do that. But if it's something that's been told to me over and over and over again, then I may need to pay attention to that and look at, how can I become the best version of myself? Unfortunately, we don't tend to want to look at things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in fact, too, we choose the people around us who are going to agree with us, rather than the friends who will actually stand up and say, you are wrong, or you need to do a reality check. Yeah. Or I love you because of all these reasons, but this part of you is not
right.
Good.
Right. And let me say, it's not so much what we say, but how we say it. And one of the things that can just really cause a person to shut down is if we in fact say, you're wrong. We don't really want to necessarily say you're wrong. We might want to say something like, well, what made you decide to do this way? Or have you considered this? I remember I was at one of my friends, and I had spent over 2 weeks with her on a Christmas holiday. And she was not well. But then mindset has a lot to do with health as well. And for Christmas, I bought her all this word art, positive words to put all over her house. And she sat in a recliner And one of the things that I put right in front of that recliner was about being positive, you know? And a lot of times, and what we don't recognize is when we constantly refer to things that have happened in our past, things that we have no control over, things that are over and done, and we keep referring back to them, things that happened a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. That's not healthy. We need to look forward. We can't change what's happened in the past. And I'm convinced that if God or the universe intended for us to look back, we would have been created with eyes in the back of our heads. We were not. We were created with eyes in front so that we could look forward and not look back. She had a tendency to constantly refer to things that had happened 5, 10 years ago that were negative things that happened in her life. And I remember I got so frustrated one day because I was trying so hard to help her see that there was a different way, a better way. And I got to the point where, now let me say this, I'm 70 in November. I know, I don't look it.
I know, I'm just shaking my head.
Thank you, Lord. Okay, and I'm not on any medications. Okay, none. And I thank God for that. And I think that's one of the reasons I don't look old. But anyway, she was on a lot of medications, and and I finally, and I know I probably shouldn't have done this, but I was really so frustrated because I kept trying to pour into her, and the more I was pouring into her, she was pouring out negatively.
Exactly.
And finally, I said to her very sternly, "Look, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not sick. You are. You need to listen to me." Well, that didn't go over very well, needless to say. Okay, it did not. But then about a week later, because she was upset with me, but a week later, she did come back and she's like, "Vera, I hear what you're saying, and I'm sorry I got upset with you." But I mean, we don't realize our health, our attitudes, and our health correlate.
Mm-hmm.
And our mindset and our health correlate. The foods we eat and our health correlate. All that stuff is so important. Mm-hmm. And so our diets, what we feed into our minds, what we pour out of our mouths, all of those things impact our lives. I could go on. Because that is just something that I want people to recognize. And then what are we pouring into our kids? What are we pouring into ourselves? What are we saying? What are we thinking? What are we reading? What are we listening to? All right, I'm done.
But it's so true. And when you've got a system that is in overdrive, which with people being stressed, maybe dehydrated, certain systems will be in stress, and those are the emotions that come up. And we don't realize that anger outburst is because we've got too much toxins sitting in the system and it can't get out. Yeah. And if we started to think about our emotions as flags for us instead of something you need to control, or that mind piece that you're going to get a handle on it, because that's a lot of work. But to actually start to go, that is a cue from my body. I'm either in not the right direction, or I need to make a change. Like you said, movement, food, attitude, but even attitude, not so much that you need to control it, but to really look at it and go, why am I angry? And it doesn't make any sense. So if it doesn't make sense, then I need to start looking at something else I'm doing that's bringing that anger through, because my system is telling me it's challenged.
Absolutely. And anger, when we harbor all that stuff, anger, guilt, unforgiveness, when we harbor all those things within us, we cannot help but be sick, because you can't, when you're constantly holding all that stuff inside of you, it's going to affect your body. It's going to affect your organs. It's going to affect everything, and so unforgiveness is another thing, that parents need to recognize is so important. Forgiving those who may have hurt us, forgiving those who may have wronged us, forgiving ourselves for how we may treat ourselves or how we may even treat other people. Having that sense of forgiveness is so important. It's like a weight, it's like a weight. When you're unforgiving, when you're harboring all that negativity, it is a weight that really weighs you down.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those people listening, you can see the passion and you can hear it, what Vera can do. And that's why I love chatting with you, Vera, because I just, your knowledge, your expertise, your background, what you're able to do, it just so powerful. And I wanted to bring that forward, in that I know that you've written the books, you've got the pieces there, you've got the step-by-step for people to be able to take a look at it all. But then to really, for parents and for people to just really think about, are they engaging every day in their activities the way they really want to? And if they aren't, we are by role model. So if our role models haven't been there for us to show us the way we would like to be, then to search out those people who can show you how to engage and how to model what it is we're really looking for.
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to challenge parents to do, I want you to write out 10 things that you value and appreciate about each one of your children, whether they're grown or not. And then I want you to ask them to do the same for you. Mm-hmm. That is a powerful exercise. Oftentimes, parents don't realize how their children, whether they're young, middle school, high school, or even grown, how they see us as parents. And a lot of times our kids don't recognize the positive things that we see in them. Now, I did not coin that exercise. I happened to see a movie, it's called Otherhood, with Angela Bassett and two other female actresses. Their sons had grown up together, and all three of them had moved to New York and were living their lives. And the mothers decided that they were going to take a road trip to go visit their sons. During the course of that, now, of course, these sons are now grown. They've graduated from college. They've got their jobs and they're living their lives. And now their moms are showing up, right, wanting to spend time with them. And Angela said to her son, I bet there's not 10 things you can tell me that you appreciate about me. And as I listened, I thought, oh, that's a good idea. And so immediately after the movie, I called my son. It was like, Miles, I want you to write down 10 things that you value and appreciate about me. And I'm going to do the same for you. That was the other end of it. Okay. She just did the one piece. Okay. I said, and I'm going to do the same for you. And I'm telling you I had no idea my son saw me the way that he did. And as a result, it made me cry, but I also, by being able to share the same with him, he saw how much I valued and appreciated him as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm not asking the audience to do anything that I haven't done myself. And I'm telling you, the end result is so powerful. And just think, if you're doing it with your kids that are elementary on up, and you're telling them, because so many times we're constantly trying to guide our kids and direct them and telling them what to do and all that kind of stuff. let's talk about the positive things that we're seeing in each other. I'm telling you, it is so powerful. So powerful. So I challenge this audience to do that right after you hear this podcast.
And
Write
it would
down.
be awesome if they wanted to share
Yes.
some of their realizations in the comments, where they can leave comments, because I think then for anybody who's following up afterwards, then to see, because some people will go, I'll do it, I'll get around to it, I might get to it. And then they don't, but then to see what some of the people who really did go ahead and do it, what did they discover? How did they enrich their lives? Yeah.
It's amazing. It is an amazing activity. And let me repeat it one more time. You're going to write down 10 things that you value and appreciate about each one of your children, whether they're grown or not. And you're going to ask them to do the same for you. You're going to come together and share these things with each other. And if it's a family unit where you've got, sit at the dinner table and share this stuff with each other. And if you have more than one sibling in the house, have them do it for each other and show appreciation. Make it a circular thing, so that everybody's doing it for everybody. I'm telling you, it is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about, as we come to the close of the podcast, and I would be asking you, what movement-based activity would you recommend to get people going, to finish the podcast and to bring balance and flow to everything they've learned and brought into themselves today. But I think you've given them the action item.
Yes.
And what I'm going to suggest here, because I'm just going to kind of encapsulate this together in the same piece, and then I still have a couple of questions for you. But I'm going to invite people to think about moving. So how they're going to move. So you've put down your list, you've thought about the items that are important, but then how are you going to move through that? So as you were thinking about your answers, there's going to be some places where it's going to be kind of sticky, because you'll come up with things that might not be so kind or nice or what you remember, but then thinking about how you can get past that. So then thinking about how you kind of get stuck in movement that way. And what can move you forward out of that is to put a really good piece of music on that inspires you. And maybe it's something that inspires you with your children or whomever it is that you're going to do this exercise. And then just dance to it and see what comes to mind. So I'll wrap that into that little capsule, which we've normally put right at the end, but I'm going to put it right where it is at the moment.
Can you imagine? And first of all, let me also say, whatever the 10 things, they have to be positive. Yeah. Nothing negative. It's got to be positive. But can you imagine after everybody does that, then they get up and start dancing? Oh,
yeah.
That would be amazing.
Into my head jumps, you make me feel like dancing.
Yes. Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's not quite finish the podcast, because I wanted to ask you a couple more things. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the podcast that you created, and you have a central focus for it. Do you want to talk about how you set the podcast up for yourself?
My show is designed to uplift, encourage, motivate, educate, and inspire. So guests that come on my show do that. And when you came on my show, you were such a wealth of information. You educated, but you also uplifted and you encouraged and you inspired. And those are the kinds of guests that I look for. And so you were an ideal guest for me. And we even had some little dance movements going on, and it was great. It was great. And so I've had my show for 3 years now, and that's the intent: to uplift, encourage, motivate, inspire, and educate. And so My show is not relegated to any particular group or target. It's just anyone that wants to be any of those things, then they need to tune into my show. We talk about everything. I have authors, entrepreneurs, community people, we've even dealt with politics. So it runs the gamut.
Perfect. That's great. And so it's the Vera Thomas Show.
Yes, and you can find it on almost all podcast platforms. It's also on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn live on those platforms. Every Tuesday and Thursdays, my show is at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's an hour long. There's some other things. By the time this airs, I probably will also have an actual television show. Yes. So I'm excited. Okay.
Awesome. That's great. And is it under the same title?
It will be under the same title.
Okay. So people will know what they're looking for.
Yes.
Perfect. That's great. Wow. Okay. From there, I thought I would check in for what's on the horizon for you in 2024. It's the year of the green dragon.
Okay.
And that is abundance, luck, transformation. So I wondered, what have you got? Well, obviously you have a TV show on the way. So there's one piece, but anything else that you're working on?
My dream and desire is to travel all over the world, speaking and training and doing workshops for parents and their kids.
Awesome.
That's what I want to see happening in 2024. So your listening audience, if you want a speaker, contact me. If you want someone to come in and do a workshop for your parents and your children, because I do a combination where I have the parents and the kids together and then separate them out, contact me. If you're a church and you want me to come and do anything in your church, contact me. That's what I want for me in 2024.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Getting out there and really making a difference. I love it.
Yes. I want to help. I want to transform lives.
So do you want to share with them how they can find you? Some of your contact links?
Well, you know what? If you go to B-I-T, B as in boy, I as in intelligent, T as in Tom, .ly/Vera Thomas, you'll be able to get all my links, social media, YouTube, and there's a couple of gifts. One of the gifts is a poem called Children Are People Too. Can I end with that poem?
Absolutely. That would be beautiful.
Okay. And then there's also an ebook of prayers, scriptures, and affirmations to help heal the body, the mind, and the soul.
Wow.
Right. So children are people too. Show them the good inside of you. Give them praise for tasks they do. See their light shine bright through the light which comes from inside of you. Children need all we desire so much: the love, the hug, the kiss, the tender touch. The attitudes we express to them are the messages they learn to send. From examples like you and me, our children grow to be what they see. Do you show hatred, indifference, or love? Do you yell and scream no matter what in spite of? Have you shared kind words with your child today? Have you truly listened to what they had to say? Or do you just ignore and continue on your way, hoping they get the message and go somewhere and play? Children are an extension of all that we are, and the most valued God-given gift by far. There are so many things they must grow to understand. We must guide and lead them with loving, outstretched hands. Teach and treat children as people too. See their light shine bright through the light which comes from inside of you.
Wow. That is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, they can download it on my link, okay?
That's perfect. So 2 free gifts in there, and also some amazing ways to find out more about the books you've written
Yes.
and the programs that you have and what's coming up with your TV show, as well as the podcast that you release not once but twice a week, which is just such an amazing feat in itself. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Vera, thank you so much for this incredible weaving of conversation, and you've shared a lot of great tools. I hope that the listeners are going to go and do that exercise, be brave and courageous to face it, because I know it can be a little daunting, but to go and do it and see what the rewards are that come from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See how your children affirm you.
Yeah.
See how you affirm your kids, whether they're adults or not.
Thank you so much, Vera.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to have been here. Thank you so much.
Season 3, we're devoted to the transformational process that happens when people reach out to their authentic selves and create magic. And our season has several publications each month. So I did talk about the start of the month, I try to share some of the tools that I'm working on or the latest projects. And at the end of the month, we try to shine a light on compassionate living. And my sister, Charlene Waynes, talks about what it's like to converse with the family, the Moyo family in Malawi, and how all of us are able to help and support. So with that, I thank you for being here. This is Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. I wish you the courage to face your transformations and the well-being for those around you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.